to the Queen to tell her her subjects had no bread. Do you know what she said?
Let them eat cake.
Who took the bomb?
We're getting screwed, man. Every time we turn around, we're getting screwed. Oh, the revolution's going to be through podcasting for sure. That's the only way we talk. It's the little guys that take the brunt of everything. It's got to stop. Peasants, man. We're just peasants. Every one of us. You watch those old movies, you see the peasants in the background with the kings and queens walking around. We're those people. We're those people. Good morning, peasants. Welcome to another episode of The Peasant's Perspective. We're so glad to have you here today because this is a big day.
Wow, people are already chatting.
Big news. Yeah, people are already chatting during the intro. This is awesome. Pony Boy, good morning. Let them eat cake. Yes, sirree. By the way, I saw a license plate that said, eat cake. And I thought, that's the license plate I wanted. It was E-A-T-K-C-K-E, right? It was missing the K, the A. But I was like, dude, that's a peasant right there. I want to talk to them. Like, let's talk some Marie Antoinette.
Have all those. Eat cake one, eat cake two.
Cake one, eat cake two. Yeah. Eat cake. And I thought, oh, dude, that's awesome. So we're going to kind of talk Atlas 3IA while we wait for people to roll in here. So International Business Times, this Harvard professor that we've played a couple clips of him, which I'm more and more convinced he's just kind of like doing it for popularity. You know, he's the Harvard guy that believes in aliens, you know. Carlitos, good morning. Pray the Rosary Daily. Good morning. Everybody's making it in. How great is this? Okay, so from International Business Times, 3i Atlas, Harvard expert Avi Loeb reveals alien ship has 7 thrusters near the sun. Harvard's Avi Loeb says that this report, so here's what he's saying here. He goes, according to the report, the Daily Star, the object appears to release 7 distinct jets with a large glowing halo as it nears the sun. The article describes the object based on stacked images showing large glowing halo extending about 500,000 kilometers with at least 7 distinct jets. That's really far, Ron. That's 1 million miles, right? 500,000 kilometers? No. That's 250,000 miles. Still, 250 million miles. That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a big bloom. Also, it mentioned that according to Harvard astrophysicist Avi Loeb, some of these are anti-tails in the sunward direction. Loeb's hypothesis, technology, not rock. In an article published, the professor noted a large figure in the search for extraterrestrial techno-signatures at Harvard University has described Atlas 3 as a gift from the interstellar space. Anyways, basically, he's saying there's these 10 anomalies that to me propose the possibility that 3i Atlas is an extraterrestrial technological product of another civilization in the Milky Way galaxy.
Right on.
Yeah, exactly. Sean Duffy was on the Sean Ryan show, and I guess because of the government shutdown, which unfortunately ended last night. I know, right? Dang. Anyways, he says they're going to release some images. They couldn't during the shutdown because they've got weird rules about what they can and can't do.
Oh, sure.
Anyways, but he says, we've got good images, and it's not an alien.
Sure.
Okay. So if it looks like a comet, acts like a comet, it is a comet. All right, we'll see. According to Harvard, and you know, everything coming out of Harvard's good.
Maybe we should shoot at it and see what happens.
Yeah. Maybe not. I don't know. So anyways, there's a documentary that's coming out November 21st, and I want to play this trailer.
Hold on. Carlitos is saying mainstream is buying that 3A Atlas stuff. Is this like a new like distraction thing?
I don't know. I mean, this is a comet, right? So something in space that's out of our control.
Sure.
Like, I refuse to believe that this is like launched, you know, like this isn't our product.
Sure.
But it's probably a comet. Like 99%, it's probably just a comet coming around the sun.
Right.
Okay.
But mainstream media is like turning this into like a megastorm propaganda with this 3i Atlas stuff. Like, oh, the aliens are coming. We got to talk about this for like, you know, ad nauseum nonstop for days and days because we're covering up what?
So here's the way I look at this. Problems that require the entire world to solve are just agendas from the one world government.
Right.
Climate change, running out of oil.
But how does this not turn into this is an existential crisis because the aliens are coming and they're almost here, and look at these new images, and oh damn, we all have to look at the sky.
This could be what this preview that I'm going to show you could be where this is going.
Okay,
could be the agenda, because it's something more than just terror and fear. It's hey, we need this technology. It's buffering. Give it a second. Buffering longer than I want. I have to refresh it. Anyways, this has a bunch of senators and official people in the trailer, so they all could be gearing this direction.
This is the biggest discovery in human history. It has so many beneficial impacts, including clean energy.
This one breakthrough can be the key to interstellar travel.
We can talk more about teleportation.
How can we use these technologies and all the capabilities that might come from it, not to fight a war, but to increase our standard of living?
If the capabilities that exist become known to the world, it might very well be that it is to the benefit of mankind.
This is happening, Ron. This is happening.
Okay.
3i Atlas is going to come give us all the technology that we've been researching all these years.
I'm on the edge of my seat.
I know you are. You're so excited. So that's pretty interesting. Another thing, too, I wanted to show you guys is there's a lot of stuff circulating around. It's not just this topic. It's many, many topics. A lot of these politicians and these bureaucrats and people that are, passing on these narratives and these messages, they don't want you to see with your eyes, right? There's certain things that we can see with our eyes that, like, for example, the price of, what inflation has done. Groceries are expensive. Certain items, eggs are down, but beef is up, right? Gas is down, except for in Washington where they've increased the taxes. So there's this, what's actually happening out on the street? If you live in Memphis, it's not safe. Do you know they've arrested like 238 people, 2,300 and something people in Memphis in like 3 months? That's unbelievable. Okay. This is a shop owner in Portland. She owns a restaurant in Portland, and she's walking through the streets of Portland. And the reason I'm bringing this up, aside from you have to see with your own eyes, I did a presentation this last week, our Ignite presentation, right? And I talk about stuff going on with the economy and some of the solutions. And I got a little bit of feedback from somebody that watched the presentation. And they're like, well, if everybody did what you did, the whole system would break and, things would get worse, or things could, what did he say? Things would break or something like that. And the feedback came to me and I'm like, see with your eyes, it's broken. Like if people did what I did, we wouldn't have this problem in Portland, like I'm going to show you, or Seattle or New York. So my thought was, what are you hanging on to? Yeah. What is already broken. Right?
So I've seen Portland firsthand. I don't need to see whatever clips you're showing. And I will also tell whoever else is listening that me and my family, we went down and visited Portland this was about 5 years ago. No, maybe 6. And we went to a food court because that's what you do when you're in Portland and you're traveling around the city. And we were mostly fine. I got a little bit sick. My wife got a little bit sick. My daughter got a little bit sick. Actually, she got really sick and ended up in the hospital with H. pylori and C. difficile and almost died. And that was my Portland experience. And F Portland, I'm never going back. So,
well, it turns out there's a lot of people that are never going back to Portland.
Oh, here I am at my restaurant Mother's, and here's my dining room. Empty now. One of the reasons why it's empty is because our city is empty. Why is our city empty?
I can tell you.
Well, because people keep talking smack about our city. Now, we've had issues. We know that. We've had homeless, like every city. No. And there's protests outside of ICE, like every city. But what's different about Portland, Oregon, is that people left the office buildings and then didn't go back after COVID. And one of the things that our great leadership of the city forgot to do was build housing downtown. So nobody really lives downtown. So we were very dependent on office workers. So now Nobody's in the office buildings.
She's
US
walking
Bank
down
left
the like
US
street.
Bank building. Bank of America left the Bank of America building. Wells Fargo left the Wells Fargo building. So I am surrounded just by empty buildings. When I say I mean my restaurant mothers. And we were very dependent on this. And that's the state of downtown. Boarded buildings because empty buildings. Why empty buildings? Because people are not returning to their offices. And why would they? If I could work from home, I would. But I can't. I have to feed people. So here we are.
Yeah. Empty restaurants, empty buildings.
Yep.
Haven't come back since COVID. Why would you go back to Portland? Why would you start a business in Seattle right now? It ain't going to happen, right? So see with your eyes. Hey, if you disrupt the financial system, it could get really bad. Have you looked around? Have you seen what's going on? I got into it with Lauren Culp this week. And you know who Lauren Culp is?
Yeah.
He was, ran for governor in 2020. Yep. I got into it with him on Twitter because he kept, Trump proposed a 50-year mortgage plan, which, 50-year mortgage is going to increase inflation. You pay more in interest. Mm-hmm. But you have this situation right now. And I played a clip last week where we talked about inflation's baked into the cake. It's not going to happen. It can't not happen. There's no options that are even remotely good that are better than more inflation. You have boomers who have taken advantage of being the reserve currency and having incredible economic growth. And right, they have these homes with lots of home equity and they're high values, but we can't sell them. Why? Because Gen Z doesn't have the income you have. They can't buy those houses. So they want you to drop your prices. You want to preserve your equity. They need a monthly payment they can afford. You need the price you want. You know how you split the difference? Longer loans.
Math is math.
Math is math. It's not that everybody wants a 50-year mortgage, but you got to lower the barrier of entry, and a couple $100s a month with the way our mortgages are set up it's all the difference for qualifying. Mm-hmm. It's like, an extra $200,000 in purchase price. So I'm like, this is, a bunch of boomers are complaining. Oh, we don't want to do this. It's bad for the economy. It's like your house is bad for the economy. Like your home equity is bad for the economy.
You are bad.
You are the bad for the economy. Yeah. Like you shouldn't have that much equity in your house. It should be worth half of what it's worth. Our money's inflated and our wages are deflated.
And the new generation is recognizing that and they don't like it.
So here's what you either get MAGA populism or you get Democrat Socialists of America populism. Mm-hmm. But globalism's dead because the wealth gap. Mm-hmm. So one way or the other, there has to be a resolution to that because people have to live. All right, let's move on to another story. Again, our inner cities and another situation with grift, fraud, and abuse. Now, I also spent the weekend with Kristan Hall. Do you know who she is?
No.
Constitutional lawyer. She's got a podcast. She's trained all over the place. Half of our audience knows exactly who she is. So I spent the weekend with Kristan Hall, and we had the Pierce County Sheriff get up and give a speech. Now, I don't know anything about what's going on in Pierce County specifically. I don't know their history of the sheriff's department or office or whatever, but apparently they're changing the sheriff from being elected to being appointed. They've taken the budget and given it to the governor, so it's not longer with the county. He hires people. They say, we won't pay him. Then they hire someone for him that he doesn't like, and they'll pay that person.
No. This is bad. This is all bad. This is a step toward communism.
It's worse than that, Ron. It's worse than that. So, we had the Mississippi River Delta, 3 sheriffs and 20 other officers all arrested. Mm-hmm. I served time with the Baltimore chief of police who ran the police department like a gang, right? I've seen a lot of this. Well, this sheriff gets up and the first sentence out of his mouth is, I got elected to replace the other sheriff who was going around murdering and kidnapping people and blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And then he goes on talking about all the reforms he's trying to institute. I didn't even hear the next 15 minutes. I couldn't stop hearing. I replaced the former sheriff who was murdering and kidnapping. So I was like, did anybody else catch that? So then I asked another guy, he's like, yeah, dude, I heard this. I couldn't hear his speech. I was like, I couldn't stop thinking about what he started out with. It's like, how did we not know the former sheriff was murdering and kidnapping people?
Wow.
So unconfirmed, don't know what he was referring to. I hadn't heard those stories, which I'm, usually you'd think I'd get wind of something like that. But I'm just saying things aren't as good as you think, right? When the government says, hey, we're going to help homeless. What was it in Seattle? They were talking about, no. It was San Francisco. They were saying every homeless person is worth $900,000 to the NGOs. So they don't want them to leave the area. They don't want them to get off the drugs, right? Well, here's another situation where, hey, let's have the government run a charity. Let's have the government put the money into good use so we can feed the homeless, because we don't want people to go to church.
In December of 2021, the FBI installed a surveillance camera overlooking this building just off Lake Street in Minneapolis. At the time, it was Safari Restaurant, which overall took in $12 million in federal child meal payments through Feeding Our Future. Safari's former co-owner, Salim Saeed, is on trial alongside Amy Bach, the Feeding Our Future executive director. Safari claimed to feed 4,000 to 6,000 kids a day. Its invoices and meal counts shown to the jury alongside the video. An FBI agent testifying that an average of 40 people came and went during the 6 weeks it was surveilled. The FBI set up a total of 12 cameras at sites claiming to serve extraordinary numbers of meals. Another was at a deli in St. Paul, also registered by defendant Salim Saeed, which claimed 1,800 meals per day. The video shown to the jury showed an average of 23 people a day coming and going. The jury was shown dozens of invoices, meal counts, and emails seized from Feeding Our Future's headquarters in St. Anthony. Some showed links to websites that randomly generated names and ages to create rosters of children who were served meals. Many were signed or sent.
They had some randomizer that created a name and age for someone they could put on a roll. A complete random, like, have you ever done those things where you can have AI create a fake person, like a new, you know?
No,
like
I
think it's a website called This Person Never Existed or neverexisted.com. Okay. You can go in and it will auto generate for you a profile picture, a name, and age, and you can create a profile out of this person never existed thing. So there's certain sleuth groups that will go online and they'll look through, mugshots and different things and find out that these are from this particular website. And it's amazing. It shows up in NBC News, ABC, like major news sites will say that this is a mugshot from somebody and it's not. And it makes you go, is this person really arrested? Or are they just filling in the gap with the stock footage? That's the thing where we don't know what they're doing. So when we catch what we're going to talk about later, like BBC or the clip we played last week where BBC edited Trump's speech, if they'll do something like that, why wouldn't they do something innocuous like, oh, hey, someone arrested for some crime. Okay, now the community will shut up about it. You see what I'm saying?
By Amy Bach, who's charged with wire fraud, along with bribery for the alleged kickbacks that she received. Her defense attorney tried to raise doubt when it cross-examined the FBI agent that they didn't see the back entrance where it's possible meals left packed in trucks for delivery.
40 a day. They said they were feeding 4,000. There's 3,800 kids coming in the back door.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
He pushed back, insisting they'd still see congestion. To that volume, he said, I would say it would not make any sense.
That case became one of the biggest COVID-era frauds in America. And the kicker, Minnesota's own Department of Education had red flags. Massive spikes in reimbursement requests, impossible meal counts, and they still rubber stamped the paperwork. Now, this new audit proves what everyone with a brain has been saying for years. Incompetence starts at the top. When the governor's own office is sloppy with receipts, how can he possibly keep his agencies in line? Republican Senate Leader Mark Johnson.
But they'll fight for their funding because we got to feed kids. And how dare you cut off the benefits?
Yeah, starving the kids.
These guys pocketed $12 million in free food money, saying they were feeding 4,000 kids
a day.
4,000 kids a day. 40 kids randomly meander in there. It's the most expensive meals they've ever eaten or will ever eat. Unbelievable. Okay,
that's only like 400 Big Mac meals.
And they put on production, right? Paperwork, fake names, rosters of kids, total production. You know what else was a huge production? January 6th.
Oh.
Total production. In fact, it was so produced, it was produced by a former ABC producer.
What?
Yeah, so we're going to spend a couple moments talking about January 6th. If anything, this portion of the segment is for my posterity. Yeah. Right. I don't want to go into tons of detail, but I need to kind of show this arc of
you gotta show enough.
Okay, I got to show enough of an arc of this story. So most people became aware of January 6th on January 6th with some headlines. But where it really sunk into the zeitgeist, the narrative of what happened, was with the January 6th committee.
Here we go. In 3, 2, 1.
The Select Committee to investigate the January 6th attack on the United States Capitol will be in order. Without objection.
We wanted to make sure that this was a presentation that would grab the audience and hold on to them. Chairman Thompson loved to say, it's got to pop.
Thompson's committee had gathered a trove of information. The challenge, what to do with it.
The one thing that we knew was the information that we have is compelling. The thing we needed to do was tell that to the American people in a compelling way. So that's why we brought in the former president of ABC News.
Yeah, I got a call pretty much out of the blue from the January the 6th committee. They wanted a storyteller.
They wanted a storyteller. Not the facts, not the evidence. They wanted a story told.
Do you believe it was out of the blue?
No. No.
Even if it was, whatever.
So the Blaze finally published their big story this weekend. And before I get into this completely, I need to make something clear. We're only as good as the information we have. And in this particular space, it's not when I say this space, I mean information, right? Influencers, podcasters, news pundits, commentators, this space, right? The monetization of opinions or news breaks or whatever it is. There's a lot of different layers of what you've got. We're just complete peasant news commentary. We're watching publicly available news, maybe an inside thing here or there, just because over time, I know a guy who happened to be in this news article, right?
And we have read some ads, but we're not getting rich from them for sure.
No.
We're just trying to work the metrics here.
Yeah. I mean, we're streaming to 10 people right now. There's probably some other gay who out there streaming to 25,000 right now that probably doesn't produce the content or the analysis that we do or have the lived experience. Okay.
Right.
Point is, this isn't for you and I. We have a purpose here. We have a mission. We have I think I speak for you. You can speak for yourself if you disagree, but to us, this isn't really about the money. We kind of want to get it self-sustaining so we can do this as a mission, but we're doing this regardless. We're going on a half decade now.
Yep.
We've been kind of right. So this is a passion project.
And if someday this turns into a money-making affair, that is still not the reason we're doing it.
No. But different people have different things. So there's some people that we love. I love Julie Kelly. Right. I love her. I sat with her. She defended J6ers, probably was critical in getting us all pardons, but she's a Democrat donor. She donated to the Biden-Kamala Harris campaign. This was in her former life, right? Before J6, and she started reporting on that. It doesn't matter what her political opinions are. She's a pretty good journalist. Okay. Steve Baker, he's a pretty good journalist. I mean, do journalists sometimes get stories wrong? Yeah. Do you want to be right? Yeah. Sometimes do you want to break the story and maybe you missed a detail? Yeah. Directionally, are you right? Usually, but again, everybody's a little different. In the ecosystem that's out there, the left has been paying their pundits for a long time. And if you're on TV in the right, Fox News, where you're getting paid, right? You probably got PACs, you got salaries, Fox News is involved. This is all propaganda. And for a long time, the podcast realm, this independent media realm, was pretty independent. I mean, it was self-funded. It was funded by direct advertising, subscriptions, whatever the case is. But over the last half decade, people have left the TV ecosystem, Megyn Kelly, and come over to the independent system. And now the TV ecosystem has bought out her platform, which is basically now just, Fox News 2.0 on the internet, on podcasts. Yeah. You've got other influencers who are very big, very, very big. And when you trace their money, you find out they do get political donations. Some come from Israel, some come from different PACs, some come from all kinds of sources.
And those guys include guys like Tucker Carlson?
No, Tucker Carlson's probably on that self-funded journey at this point.
Okay.
To my knowledge, he hasn't sold out. In fact, he did the opposite. He cashed in.
Okay.
Right? He was sold out before. I mean, he'll admit it. I pumped the Iran-Iraq war because that's what they told me to pump, and I believed it because I thought, why would the government lie to me? Okay.
Well, I mentioned Tucker because I was also wanting to mention Charlie Kirk, not because he was accepting the money, but because he was adjacent to it. And it was impacting his life.
And he had taken money and was trying to stop taking money. That was part of the controversy in his last 6 months, was he was trying to say, hey, I'm not down with what my...
And I think the point of your whole bringing all this up is that the money that used to be in, terrestrial news is sliding into podcast, arena.
Yes. And I could dedicate a budget every day to my posts and I could promote them. and I could have the reach and impact. And I've looked into, and some of these guys that get these viral posts have promoted those posts. Right. And it's like, where do you get the money to promote those posts? Because usually you're not making money when you pay money to push a post.
So the influence of money in podcasts is starting to impact podcasts like it has and is impacting regular
because
news.
I can push my information into more eyeballs and find out who's going to tag along. Marizo, happy birthday to you. Don't want to forget that. Okay, so I'm saying that because this got released, and within 6-7 hours, some of your pundits, many of which supported Ron DeSantis really hardcore, blah, 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 but became close to Cash and Dan, all of a sudden came out and said, pump the brakes on this story. The FBI, the DOJ hasn't confirmed it. But if you read the story, Steve Baker went around them because they believe they were covering this up from the beginning. Okay. And that Cash and Dan have basically signed on to the cover up. So you've got two J6 narratives right now. One is an Antifa narrative. This was all Antifa set up. And one is the Capitol Police did it. This was Nancy Pelosi's set up. These are two narratives. The FBI is trying to push the it's all Antifa narrative, but the evidence is pointing to inside job feds direction. So let's look at this Blaze Media article. So they released this. This is all their information. Any allegations made, I lay on their lap. Steve Baker and Joseph Hanneman reported this. So here is the Capitol Hill police bomber. Here's a picture of her in high school, in college when she played soccer. Here's a picture of her as a Capitol Hill police officer. And here's a training video of her, a training picture of her. Okay. Apparently she's a lesbian Capitol Hill police officer. Can't confirm that, but that's what people are saying.
Shocking.
A computer program that compared the bomb suspect's gait to that of Shani Kirchhoff produced a 94% match. Forensic analysis of the female U.S. Capitol Police officer's gait is a 94 to 98% match to a unique stride of long-sought J6 pipe bomb suspect, according to Blaze News Media. A source close to a congressional investigation of January 6 additionally told Blaze News, evidence has emerged recently that pointed towards law enforcement possibly being involved in planting the bombs. They were effing in on it. A software algorithm that analyzes walking parameters, including flexation, knee bend, hip extension, speed, length, step length, cadence, and variance, rated Shani Kirchhoff, 31 of Alexandria, VA, as 94% match to the bomb suspect shown on video from January 5th, 2021. The veteran analysis who ran the analysis for Brazen News said that based on visual observations the program can struggle with, he personally pegged the match at closer to 98%. Kirchhoff was a Capitol Police officer for 4.5 years, left the department in mid-2021 for a security detail at the Central Intelligence Agency. CIA spokesperson Liz Lyons stated that the subject worked on campus security. Kirchhoff's residence in Alexandria, VA appeared to be under the watch of law enforcement officers on Friday night. Blaze News editor-in-chief Christopher Bedford was pulled over by local police after stopping to observe the home. He was then allowed to leave. The close to bomb suspect. The FBI, which failed to solve the case in nearly 5 years of investigation, but indicated that it was closing in after Blaze News brought its investigation to intelligence sources, was feet from Falls Church address of the pipe bomb suspect days after January 6, according to Blaze News investigation. Former Special Agent Kyle Seraphim realized Friday that he was doing surveillance next door to the woman now suspected of being the January 6 pipe bomber. So what he's talking about is this right here. So he was... Apparently, this woman had 3 devices on her person, and they tracked it back to this house right here. So one of the pinging devices took them to this townhouse. This is her house. They stake this out. This is Kyle Seraphim. They stake this house out for days. And then the moment Kyle Seraphim requested from his supervisors to do a knock and talk, as in to talk to the neighbors here and here, he was pulled off. And he was pulled off of the investigation and sent into the office to basically look at Facebook tips.
Of course he was.
So the moment he said, hey, I just want to knock and talk, they had him surveying the wrong house. I want to knock and talk. Pulled him off the investigation.
Yeah, we can't have him interfacing with the suspect.
Exactly. The FBI put us one door away from the pipe bomber within days of January 6th, and we were deliberately pulled away for no logical or logically investigative reason. Seraphim told Blaze News Friday, and everything about that tells me they were involved in a cover-up and have been since day one. They were effing in on it, Seraphim said. Seraphim proposed doing a door knock and talk at the door of the Air Force, of an Air Force civilian employees whose address was tied to a vehicle that picked up the bomb suspect in Falls Church, Virginia on January 5th, 2021. Seraphim's team spent 2 days watching the man, but They followed a car that picked him up to there. And they're like, oh, it can't.
And 5 years later, we can't figure it out.
Analysis. That's more confirming than the Gait analysis. You tell me you have a 94% match with the neighbor of the car who drove him to that location.
Right.
Oh, don't do the knock and talk. So you basically, oh, by the way, the neighbor's a government employee, right? So good chance. Hey, you mind giving her a ride? Seraph's team spent 2 days watching the house. Seraphin said he has given the same details publicly since 2021. There's a special reaction to it, which is the complete vindication of the things I've been saying, and my recollection of being briefed on this stuff has been accurate for years. I've never changed my mind, he said. The FBI tried to DC Metro Rail smart trip card allegedly used by the pipe bomber suspect on an Air Force civilian employee, but determined that while the man purchased the card, he did not use it. The suspect allegedly used the card to travel from DC to a stop in Falls Church after planting the pipe bombs. The Air Force civilian employee had purchased the smart trip card a year earlier. So they purchased this card in the neighbor's name, but the neighbor never used it. Could this be like some identity fraud cover up? Gait analysis, the forensic study arranged by Blaze News, revealed that Kirchhoff is up to a 98% match of the gait to the gait of the pipe bomb suspect. The findings were confirmed by several current intelligence sources who viewed the study's results. The source did not mention, said the software rated the match at 94%. He put the figure at closer to 96 and 98% match, including a combination of human intelligence and software analysis. Samples of Kirchhoff's gait were taken from January 6 Capitol Police CCTV security video and compared to unedited video of the hoodie-wearing suspect walking through an alley near C Street. Two other sources familiar with the Gait analysis who viewed the video comparison and software analysis told Blaze News they concurred that the video samples matched the gait of the gray hoodie-wearing suspect. The mystery of the pipe bombs has hung over January 6 for nearly 5 years. Discovery of the devices between 12:40 and 1:05 p.m. respectively on January 6 already drew depleted police resources away from the Capitol just as a huge crowd breached the grounds at 12:53, a joint session of Congress convened at 1 p.m. to take up challenges of the certification of the Electoral College. Kirchhoff was a Capitol Police officer in 2028 to 2021. She was a member of the department's, get this, Civil Disturbance Unit and a training officer in the use of less lethal crowd control weapons that were extensively used on the January 6th crowd, using less lethal force. Blaze News reported Wednesday on Capitol Police surveillance video shows Kirchhoff and other CDU officers repeatedly using lethal force on January 6th crowd, using less lethal weapons, in quotes, as at least 16 members of the early crowd of the Capitol on the Capitol's West Plaza were shot above the waistline with kinetic impact projectiles fired from above on the lower West Terrace. Blaze News approached numerous intelligence figures 2 weeks ago with questions about the findings from its investigation, which suggested that Kirchhoff matched the description and behavior of the suspected pipe bomber based on her distinctive walk, slight limp, 5'7" frame, and other factors. And then they said they completed all the steps, turned it into who they need to turn it into. So there's pictures of the pipe bomb. All right, I want to show you something.
Oh, there's multiple pipe bombs, right?
No, that's one pipe bomb just taken at different angles. Don't ask, I don't know.
But one's on brick and one's on rock.
Oh, one's at the RNC and one's at the DNC. So these are two pipe bombs. Okay, this is what FBI training pipe bombs look like.
Oh, huh.
Look familiar? Look familiar?
Well, familiar? I mean, there are both pipes.
Anybody? Training pipe bombs? I mean, a pipe bomb's a pipe bomb, but I'm just saying, like, egg timer.
They both have the same timers.
Now, they dropped this thing off 14 hours early. And they claim, they've absolutely said this was a viable pipe bomb. Had 20 minutes left on the egg timer it's a 1 hour egg timer. So 14 hours earlier, you dropped a pipe bomb.
That means somebody has to set the timer.
That had 20 minutes left on it when it was found. Oh, and here's the best part. It was found by a plainclothes Capitol Hill police officer.
Oh.
So now you've got Capitol Hill police officer drops it off. Secret Service drug dogs come do sniffing. Find it. Capitol Hill police officer, plainclothes. Oh my gosh, look, a pipe bomb. So you telling me the Secret Service drug dogs got broken noses? Or maybe this was always a training device and it was never live in the first place. I don't know. So, what he ended up doing, here was he ended up taking it, instead of taking this investigation to, instead of taking this, goes on and he explains more of his evidence. Instead of taking this investigation to the FBI, Donald Trump has long since had his own investigators. He's got his own private investigation team made up of former intelligence, former military intelligence. These are people that are outside of government that have been empowered with a lot of resources, technology, and funds and connections to do Trump's research because he does not trust the DOJ. They briefed Donald Trump on this yesterday. Pam Bondi, Kash Patel didn't want to acknowledge this because they want to push the Antifa narrative and not the government narrative.
Why can't we push them both?
When you find out that Antifa is basically being run by the government, it's all one thing. It's all one thing. Okay. So then it continues on here. Here is the day after, January 7th, MSNBC already was saying
the pipe bombs found outside the headquarters of the RNC and the DNC in Washington were both reportedly real bombs. They were not hoax devices. They were operable pipe bombs capable of causing, quote, great harm, according to the Capitol Police Bomb Squad.
Now, Kamala Harris was in the wall behind this. Who knows why she wasn't at the certification of the election where she was about to become vice president, this huge moment in history where she breaks the glass ceiling. Instead, she's in the DNC for unknown reasons, never yet disclosed. And she doesn't make herself a victim of, I could have been stopped by a terrorist. Instead, no one hardly mentions it. Oh, the bombs are real. Can't find the bomber. But yet they can use, and a lot of people have said, well, the Gait analysis and the facial recognition, it doesn't really work and they don't really use it. And here's people's what they'll say is well, you can't prove someone did it just by those things. Okay, great. But can I create enough probable cause and reasonable suspicion to go get a warrant? And then I can go see if they have the gray sweater or the fancy shoes or the bag that the bomb was in, right? You use something to, once you have a crime and you get the slightest hint of an identity, that's enough to be able to go serve a warrant or a subpoena and find out.
Yeah,
For example, here, identified, this is from Alaska Democrat Gazette. This is a January 6er, identified by his ears. Arkansas man is arrested in Capitol riot. So what do? They identify him by his earlobes because he's wearing a mask and a hat. They come find him. They serve a warrant. Sure enough, you were at January 6th.
Oh, how do they do it?
So it's not that you need 100% to get a conviction. You need what? 75% probability to get a warrant to ask some questions?
Well, remember how they found Luigi Mangione in the McDonald's with facial
analysis?
Facial recognition analysis.
So,
I think they saw his eyebrows or something, and that was it.
Yeah. Now, I mentioned at the beginning, there's certain influencers that get paid. Julie Kelly, I love her. I have nothing bad to say. So I'm just looking at this objectively. She's come out. Her and Steve Baker apparently have beef. Her and Kyle Seraphin hate each other. And apparently they think that she's like a gatekeeper for all things J6. But what's really hurting Julie Kelly and Benny Johnson here, because Benny Johnson came out and did the whole Cash is my friend, and he would never cover anything up. You don't know what he's up against. Okay. You don't know what he's up against.
Yeah.
These guys parroted this FBI line of, wait, this isn't really great. The Blaze isn't, reliable, blah, 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 blah. And Benny took a lot of heat for this. Like, Benny, you're a DeSantis supporter. Like, you're late to the Trump train. So stop. Anybody who loves Benny Johnson, great. Take the information at face value, but don't take them as a trusted source. And a lot of these guys now have their own source. That was the other thing. That was the other thing. Everybody who criticized this article, sources inside the FBI are telling me, stop trusting your sources. That's the problem. So here's Kyle Seraphin, who Benny Johnson, to his credit, had on his show to kind of reconcile this.
J6er, there's one J6er, Kyle, that I will devote every resource of this program to personally. It's a finding. It is the pipe bomber.
For sure.
One person who behaved in a way that would have caused mass terrorism, right? And planted a pipe bomb. So let's believe the official story. Could have killed the vice president, right?
Theoretically.
Because theoretically, Kamala Harris walks right by the bomb. So,
and how do you take my team, which is sitting on someone that is going to hopefully get us there, and pull us off, which is what they did in the second week. They took us off and they said, you can't go watch this person anymore. You need to go back to your offices, sit out at the airport, and just look at your computer terminal and read random tips of people who hate conservatives and who hate Republicans that are coming in wholesale across the lines from West Virginia. And that's what they did.
They had a hot lead, dead to rights, that had direct physical connections and transactions with the pipe bomber, and they pulled you.
Correct. And I said, I'm like, look, if you guys don't want to go talk to them, I will. I understand. Like counterintelligence agents, counterterrorism agents, they work in national security. They get real cagey about going out and talking to people. I used to work in outside sales. I'm not exactly afraid of like knocking on a door and having a chat with somebody. I was like, supposedly this person was associated with the Air Force. I was an Air Force veteran. I'll go knock on the door and say, look, man, you probably got on the wrong side of this thing. Why don't you come in and help us out? Because we're trying to figure out so nobody gets hurt. And you wouldn't want that. But that wasn't what they did, as far as I know. Now, maybe they went back and did it after the fact. But I was in the Bureau for at least another year after that, and I never heard that ever got done. And I got friends that were on that surveillance team, and they were never put back out there again. That goes up to right now. That's never been done. But what the heck was that? So that's on my list of questions. There's other questions that are a little bit more sort of nebulous. The questions about honest services fraud. There's a woman named Amy Nelson who was a bundler for Barack Obama. She was on the political left and raised money for Obama. Her husband was targeted simply because Amazon went and leaned on the DOJ, and the DOJ prosecuted her husband, or threatened to prosecute him, took every penny they had, took their home, like bankrupted their bank accounts, and never once charged him with a crime. All because Amazon brought a briefing deck to the United States attorney in the Eastern District of Virginia and said, would you charge this guy? Because we really need to get out of a contract. It's going to cost us $100 million if we don't do it right. So they charged him and tried to get a bunch of people to admit to felonies. The federal courts have actually vacated the plea bargains in this. So there's some questions about her case and how people use what's called civil asset forfeiture. I'll tell you the legacy of the last 4 years under Biden, which is actually kind of incredible for conservatives. I think people who lean to the right in this country now have a brand new respect and empathy for people who have been targeted by our criminal justice system. I talked to Proud Boys. I interviewed Joe Biggs this weekend. I talked to Stuart Rhodes. How many guys that were in that camp, veterans, guys who were kind of tough, law enforcement, law enforcement supporters, we're going to go out there and say, if somebody was accused, now I want to hear their story more. I want to know what they were about, because we now have this new sensitivity that maybe everything is actually just not that fair in this country.
Interesting.
And I think, honestly, that's a gift from God, to have a lot of empathy for our fellow man. It's a thing that didn't exist before. I'm actually grateful for 4 years of Joe Biden, because I think if we had Donald Trump back to back, we wouldn't be where we are right now. We wouldn't have the energy. We'd have basically an obstructionist Congress instead of an American people that saw 4 years of evil. And I do think it was very evil, that are pissed off and want to see, let's not say retribution, let's say accountability and some transparency. And I do hope that's what we're going to see. I think we've got two guys that are there that at least have been talking the talk and walking it as much as possible. Now they're in a position to actually do something about it. So like I said, it's an uphill battle, but I want to see him win.
So if you know Kyle Seraphin and you know Benny Johnson, whatever this was of breaking bread, Kyle Seraphin is over here he toned it down for this.
Okay.
Right? He does not believe Kash Patel and Dan Bongino are doing a good job. He's calling for them to resign. You've talked a good game, but you got to do something here. You can't be turning down these tips. That's the Kyle Seraphin who staked out the house, right? And he's saying, hey, and I recognize that too. I've said it, what the minority community has been complaining about by the criminal justice system is true. It's more than true. In fact, what we've heard have been whispers of what the truth is.
This last 4 years topic that he was bringing up, I'm of the same opinion that he is, but I also have a small part of my heart that just hopes that this was done on purpose. Do you know what I'm talking about? Let me just say Sun Tzu, Art of War. Yeah.
You think, okay.
You let your enemy, go out and just show themselves. And I was wondering if, when Trump lost to the 80 plus million votes or whatever, if he didn't go, let's just go ahead and let them run it and show themselves. And I was hopeful that was a thing that was happening. I don't know that was happening, but
wouldn't that be nice if it was? But I don't know that is the case.
I don't think so either anymore, but that's what I was hoping at the time.
Hope. So this is an article from Courthouse News Service, and this is from March 2nd, 2022. So this gentleman pictured here is Guy Reffitt. I've actually been chatting with him yesterday and this morning. So good guy. So Guy Reffitt here is a former, it says here, Washington, a former U.S. Capitol Police officer testified Wednesday. At this point, she's former because she's moved on to the CIA to be on the protective detail. Now she repeatedly launched pepper balls at Texas man in an attempt to stop him from leading a mob. I thought I led the mob, leading a mob to the Capitol on January 6th. Every time they took a step. Sherry Kirkhoff told jurors it was becoming a dire situation. Kirkhoff is the government's first witness in the case against Guy Reffitt, the first Capitol riot defendant to go to trial. He is accused of charging at police with a gun holstered on his waist during the riot. During Wednesday's hearing, Kirchhoff told the jury that she confronted Reffitt when he climbed into a banister on the west side of the Capitol after repeatedly ignoring her commands to back up. Kirchhoff said she launched maybe 30 to 40 pepper balls at him. Oh, that doesn't piss a guy off. I didn't affect his behavior, she said, adding that he appeared to be wearing a lot of clothes. Prosecutors played off audio of Kirchhoff radioing to other police officers for help, saying someone who she identified in court as Reffitt was breaching the West Terrace. U.S. Attorney Jeffrey Nestler asked how she felt at the time. Kirchhoff said she was panicked. Reffitt said she said only retreated when a fellow officer sprayed him with pepper spray. Asked why she did not use her service weapon, Kirchhoff said she thought people in the crowd were armed and was afraid there would be a shootout. She noted that she did not see a weapon holstered on Reffitt's hip. The government also showed various photos and videos allegedly showing Reffitt using a megaphone and gesturing to the crowd to come to the Capitol steps. During the cross-examination, Kirchhoff deflected further inquiry about not using the service weapon from Reffitt's court-appointed attorney. Welch signaled in his opening statements that he hopes to highlight the short amount of time that Reffitt engaged in the alleged crime. Anyways, she went on to testify at his sentencing and called Guy Reffitt a domestic terrorist. She planted the pipe bomb and then was the first witness. I want, to my listeners at home, to my dad, to everybody out there, this is as serious as it gets. There's no joke. This is not, I am your guy, okay? The Capitol Hill police planted a pipe bomb. The police officer that planted the pipe bomb assaulted January 6ers. And in a sense of absolute rub it in your face, was the first officer to testify in a trial. And she called the defendant the domestic terrorist. The pipe bomb was found by a plainclothes Capitol Hill police officer. In my trial, the Capitol police chief testified that when the bomb was called in, resources were diverted to go respond to the bomb as Trump was still talking. Resources that had previously been assigned to lay out the barricades and the bike racks where the snow fencing was to stop the crowd didn't get done because of her. Then we all show up, do what we're doing. No pipe bomb. I spend J6 at the reflecting pond in a dour, sad mood. Instead, I walk up onto the Capitol lawn, and from there, it's anybody's show. See, what happened, and this is my firm belief, is your government planted a pipe bomb to stop Congress from asking about how crap like this translated to 81 million votes.
Yeah, that's a good shot.
Minutes before Congress was going to start asking questions about the 2020 election, the Capitol Hill found this bomb right conveniently when Kamala Harris was Kamala Harris was next to it. Coincidentally, someone who might have been easily directed by Nancy Pelosi to go there. So Nancy Pelosi's in charge of the police. Nancy Pelosi tells the military not to come, the National Guard not to come. She doesn't beef up security or do anything, and she ignores repeated requests for additional security, including ignoring reports that Antifa was going to cause violence that day. And then when it's all said and done, the Capitol Hill police, yeah, it's a live bomb, but we gave it to the CIA to quantico.
Like you needed a report anyways to know there was going to be some violence.
Here's where it gets worse. Donald Trump in the next 4 years has 2 separate attacks on his life. Okay. Who knows? Lone wolves. There's lots of connections. It's weird.
Okay.
But the person who essentially was the trigger man on a coup dropped the pipe bomb that obstructed Congress that I got charged with. This is the woman who did it. She went to the CIA and got on security detail. Now she's not on Ratcliffe security detail, but she does building security. You know, when they come, she's part of the.
Okay.
She's in the room with Donald Trump with a loaded gun.
What?
Yeah. Because she was CIA security. So, you know, when Ratcliffe and Trump meet, she's there with a gun.
Ooh.
So the woman who overthrew our government gets to be in a room with Donald Trump with a gun, and you think the Secret Service is doing a good blinking job? You think the FBI is out there trying to stop crime? Oh, they're taking the criminals off of Memphis, but they're not taking them out of the White House.
Nothing to see here, folks.
Nothing to see here, folks. Meanwhile, here's the chief of police at the time of J6 talking with John Solomon, and Trump tweeted this out on Saturday. Big news, to rigged election. So this is before Trump was briefed on the pipe bomb thing. This is the counter narrative. They want you to go the Antifa route.
Seems to be that there might have been more suggestions that there could be armed resistance, armed insurgency, armed insurrection, that these informants were hearing and telling the FBI. And two, I've also heard rumblings that maybe Antifa was a concern that the FBI had on that day. Could you shine any light without violating the confidences that you have to keep?
Right, because the main thing about the confidentiality here and the classification is protecting who the sources are, right? So the information, I think we're at liberty to share the information that they had, and you're exactly right. There were elements, not every group that was there, but there were certain groups that were planning on an armed attack of the Capitol, and even against law enforcement if they got in the way. And it's not just isolated. It was, again, from several different places across the United States and reported to several different field offices. And so that is true. That's why I was saying there should have been even more security put in place. The National Guard should have been at the Capitol the first time Chief of Police Stephen Sund requested it, just based on that information. One of my concerns about this, and I'm just going to speak from my own self, and one of the things that I think we need to run down is, if they would have passed along this level of intelligence, if they would have shared that level of intelligence, would have had changed the security posture to the extent where President Trump would not have come out and given his speech at the Ellipse? Would it have significantly changed the security posture of everybody in Washington, D.C.? That's something else I want to look into. Was there a political motive by some to let some of this play out? And we've talked about this before in the past. So that's something else that I think we need to look at, because we have to decouple the politics from our national security and the security of the American people when they're in Washington, D.C. The other question you ask about Antifa, the answer is yes. There was concerns that Antifa would be embedded within the crowds there. There were several references, again, not just isolated to one, but several different field offices, different organizations that were reporting that they had heard that Antifa would be embedded within the crowd. What we want to look for is, what did the FBI know? When did they know it? And what did they do with the information? And what was the information? And I can tell you unequivocally, they had to know that there was something not only bad going to happen, but the reports coming from these confidential human sources, not just one, multiple sources from multiple organizations across multiple field offices across the nation, were reporting the same thing, that not only was there going to be violence in Washington, D.C. at the Capitol on January 6th, most of the reports were it was going to be a whole lot worse than what actually it turned out to be. And so I suspected we would find information. I was surprised that we found this significant intelligence that was derived from these people embedded in these organizations. There is no way that at least the Washington.
Look at the size of that crowd.
So I was just wondering, I'm glad that you paused that. Pause. So I'm glad you paused it, because when they were showing that clip with all those people, this is, I believe, the reason they were not able to get the violence they were after, because there was overwhelmingly so many people that were there peacefully.
Yeah.
Millions of people there were peacefully, and they just couldn't turn it into the violent, huge shit show they wanted.
They could turn the little isolated spots where they were pepper spraying the crowd.
Right.
The tunnel where Roseanne Bynum or My Little Incident.
Right.
You know,
they kept trying to get it to kick off, and they just couldn't get it to kick off.
Aren't going to be down with it. Yeah.
Was not aware that there were elements, not the entire crowd, there were elements of people coming to Washington, D.C. with the intent of attacking the Capitol of the United States. What I also found out is that is really the only intelligence that we can see that the FBI relied upon, because I've asked several times, what other intelligence did they derive? Did they get intelligence from other agencies like as Homeland Security, Department of Defense, the CIA, the intelligence community as a whole? And the answer I'm getting is no. And then my question was, what intelligence reports were sent out? And that's what we're looking for right now, because we're really having a hard time finding really any tangible reports that were sent to the Capitol Police or other agencies. And so my question is, what did they know? When did they know it? And what did they do with the information? We do now know what they did know. The question is, what did they do with it?
So that's Barry Loudermilk, congressman who's now in charge of the new January 6th committee, in my opinion, giving you half the story. Why didn't they look into it? Why weren't they? Because they rigged it.
Because it was them.
It was them. This is Officer Fanone. Okay, this was a speech he gave with Robert De Niro, and behind him is Harry Dunn. These are two of the four really famous police officers from January 6th. Okay, now I fast forwarded this clip because there's horn honking in the background because there's counter protesters where he's talking. But this is a Capitol Hill police officer, co-worker of this gal who dropped the pipe bomb. I don't even want to say her name. Now, just 2 weekends ago, I talked to someone who he's going to say grabbed my gun. No, it was the opposite. He pushed his gun back in your holster. He put it back in your holster because it fell out. Okay? This is a guy, the opposite of what you're saying.
January 6, 2021, I heard distress calls coming from fellow police officers on the Capitol as thousands of Trump supporters rushed them and brutally assaulted members of law enforcement. That day, I, like many other, hundreds of other DC police officers, put on a uniform and responded to the Capitol to assist our brothers and sisters in law enforcement.
Okay, there's too much background noise. The audio is horrible. But he goes on to tell a story about, these guys pled guilty to the charges, so they're absolutely guilty. Well, no, they couldn't get the court to watch the video where he put the gun back in your holster. And so he ended up taking the plea deal because it was 10 years or 2. It's like, that's not how this works, man. Again, I've said this before. I don't mean it offensively. For our loved people that we love that are in law enforcement that are trying to do what's right, ACAB, bro. All cops are bad cops. Why do I know that? Because if there were any good cops, there wouldn't be bad cops. You'd roll up on the bad ones and arrest them. And you definitely wouldn't cover up for them, right? So this guy, an investigator, 20 years working narcotics investigations, you can't sniff this out. Okay. Oh, I was attacked. Really? I've watched the videos. It doesn't quite look that way.
Show me the bruises.
Now, keep in mind, here's the former FBI director and the former press secretary telling you what you need to do with all of us violent J6ers.
Do you agree with the strategy of focusing on the Oath Keepers and focusing on prosecuting that group of individuals first in order for it to be a deterrent?
You've got to throw the net wide, get all of them, both the organized groups, Proud Boys, Oath Keepers, but find everybody who went into that building. Find them all. Again, not because of my concern that those people who committed a misdemeanor are going to go into the community and reoffend. The message has to be sent of zero tolerance. We will find everyone and punish everyone who went in there so that no one does it again. We will hunt you to the end of the earth, even for a misdemeanor, and make you pay for that to send that message.
What will you do for putting a pipe bomb next to the vice president? You think maybe you could hit her with that 1512 obstruction of Congress charge finally and get it to stick? You think maybe we'll get, you can get seditious conspiracy like you did to the Proud Boys and Oath Keepers? You think you can get it to stick?
Your 48 hours is running out.
And all we wanted to do was ask questions about the election. All we wanted to do was ask questions about the election. Now, the 2025 election just happened. Here we go.
Still got questions.
Okay. So Tim Pool posts, a Capitol cop has been accused of planting pipe bombs and then got a job at the CIA. Man. And then here, Republicans did turn out in New Jersey. This is from this last week. However, there was a magical 500,000 jump in turnout, so they lost. So look at this chart here. This is important. So we go 1969, right? 2.3 million votes. You jump all the way to 2021, 2.5 million votes. Yeah. So New Jersey has increased in voters, but I think if I'm not mistaken, New Jersey's kind of been flat in population, right? Because there's a lot of people leaving the big city. New Jersey's like all populated. So Okay, Phil Murphy in 2021 won the election with 1.339 million votes. Now in 2025, the Republican candidate just got 1.78 votes, more votes than the governor got in their winning bid in 2021. But now in 2025,
still
the
lost.
Democrat got 1.792 million votes. Look at the jump in votes. You have a 500,000 jump in votes here, right?
More than
To 17 to
500.
2021. After 2020, you had another almost $500,000 ballot jump. Do you not, when Chris Christie this is insanity. Somehow we have over 3 million voters and the Democrat has 1.7 million votes. 2 million plus voters for the last 50 years, and the winner would roughly get 1.1 to 1.4, and suddenly we're at 1.7.
Right.
Can we ask any questions? Straight to jail. Don't ask, go. Okay. Now, Harmeet Dillon, who's the civil rights attorney, they watched this election. They went poll observers to certain places, and she's talking to Catherine Herridge about a few of the things that she saw, not just there in Pennsylvania, but other places as well.
For Tuesday's elections, the Justice Department sent election monitors to New Jersey and California. Is there any reporting from these teams of potential civil rights violations?
We are compiling our reports. I will say I got several reports on the day of on the ground, and there were some concerning aspects, I would say, particularly in New Jersey, but also in a state where we didn't send monitors because they weren't requested, in Pennsylvania. In Pennsylvania, Chester County had 75,000 voters who were independent. They simply weren't included on the poll book. And that means that, some of them were turned away from the polls. I quickly put out a post on X informing the public that if you are subject to some irregularity at the polls, and because I'm a longtime election lawyer, I knew this without having to look it up, you can ask to vote provisionally. But a lot of people didn't know that.
People don't have that kind of information.
No, they didn't. And it's a real failure to imagine disenfranchising virtually 75,000 people in an election. And there were, 3 Supreme Court judge races on the election, very important races. That's the margin. I mean, 1 vote is the margin in an election. So that's a massive fail. So I think people can expect that there will be follow-up action from the DOJ on the failure to administer elections properly in multiple jurisdictions.
Oh, okay, so do we take back the candidates and tell them to go home, pack their bags, and redo it?
Rerun it?
We run it? Or, okay, it's damage done.
Yeah.
We'll try to fix it.
Oh, well.
Okay, we're on 6 years now since our,
We'll fix it next time.
We'll fix it next time. Now, I mean, justice does a dish served cold, right? I mean, Trump, BBC goes to war with fake news, BBC, White House attacks leftist propaganda machine over biased doctoring of president's speech. Turns out Tim Davis resigns as the BBC director general over Trump documentary of it. It took 5 years, but eventually they had to cop up to the charge and be like, yeah, we edited that pretty bad. The production they called J6.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've often wondered and questioned. You're not on. I need to close this for some reason. It's not. Okay. I don't understand how everybody showed up at J6. I know how I got there. I talked to different people. They had different stories. Different people had different reasons and motives. But not everybody at J6, and especially those that were arrested, we're not all the same. Okay, it's just the case. So right here, Cook County Sheriff's Office, fugitive found. Every time a J6er gets in trouble, it's national news. Fugitive found. A man who was once accused of firing a gun during the January 6, 2021 riot at the Capitol, which I ended up being a flare gun, was taken into custody last month after, I could be wrong on that, after he was wanted for aggravated kidnapping and aggravated sexual assault in Utah. The Salt Lake County, Utah warrant was issued on October 1st for John Benuelos. On October 7th, the Cook County Sheriff's Fugitive Apprehension Unit. Anyways, they took him into custody. Buenos was charged last year for the January 6, 2021 shooting that had no reported injuries. The case was dismissed in January following President Trump's order pardoning those charged in the riot. Benuelos, the Summit, remains in custody at Cook County Jail. So here's a picture of him.
All right.
Now, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the neck tattoos, but to me, it kind of says, I don't know. I'm just saying, we're not all the same. But I need people to realize something. Joe Biden also pardoned a lot of people. So here's a felon released by former President Joe Biden after serving 7 years of a 20-year sentence is now under arrest in connection with a shooting in Omaha's Old Market District. Shocking. Yeah, exactly. So again, yes, there were some J6ers who don't fit the same mold that maybe you put me into. Maybe they weren't Eagle Scouts, right? But that's okay. There's 1,580 of us. I've said it since day one. 50 to 100 real yahoos that were there, you know? And of course, yes, there's guys there with, you know, we're a broad slice of life. The other thing too is Donald Trump put out a kind of a tirade tweet sort of against the Supreme Court, asking, has anybody told the Supreme Court the tariffs are for national security? I think they're pretty concerned about the Supreme Court overturning the apple cart here. And I spent the weekend spending, you know, in one case, very enraged over the January 6th pipe bomb situation. But on the other, I spent a lot of time this weekend studying like macroeconomics, rise and fall of empires, currency stuff. And we're in a tough spot because clearly China's on the ascendancy and we're on the downturn and we're in that cycle that's the freight train coming. Okay. And so the only way that you can really soften the landing, I don't know that anybody's trying to prevent the crash, right? I don't think anybody's trying to prevent the crash. They're trying to soften
it doesn't
the
feel
landing.
like it.
And tariffs is critical to doing that because every empire that goes through what we're going through, what really does them in after the crash is when they have a hollowed out economy. They can't make anything. They can't do anything. This is what happened to the Dutch, happened to the British, it happened to the Spanish, and it's happening to us right now. We don't make enough to survive independently. So once we lose our status, nobody wants our money and we can't buy. It's bad news bears. So Scott Bessent was on this ABC this week kind of explaining this.
Revenues come in at the beginning, then as we rebalance, which is the goal of this, bring back high-paid manufacturing jobs to the U.S., then it will then morph into domestic tax revenues. You know, President Trump has consistently fought for the American worker, and we are seeing trillions of investments in the U.S. that would not have occurred without the tariffs. The other thing, too, is the authority that he uses is called IEPA. It is an emergency authority, and he used that emergency authority. He got the Chinese to the table to negotiate on stopping the precursors for fentanyl drugs. If fentanyl, hundreds of thousands of Americans dying every year is not an emergency, what is? On October 8th, Chinese threatened to put export controls on rare earth materials. He was able to threaten 100% tariffs, and we were able to negotiate that away. And then finally, in terms of the general tariffs, we are doing these trade deals that would not be possible. We were at a tipping point in terms of the economy, in terms of our trade balance, and we are rebalancing successfully.
So they're trying to get the trade balance figured out. Again, I was watching this. I watched this big 44-minute presentation by Ray Dalio. And it was all great. It had like charts and graphics, and it was really cute. It was like, I need to make people watch this. It was like, this is explaining what's happening right now. He was talking about projecting out into the future and how there's certain events that only happen once in your lifetime, but they're mirrored throughout history. And he's like, we've seen these once in a lifetime events, but nobody has a memory of how the last one was because it's just the way, and so we think it's like the first time the economy's crashing. He's like, no. There's a flood to commodities because of the fiat, and he explains it all. Okay.
Yeah, I happen to think that they like to cover up what happens so that people aren't aware of what's really going on.
That's the other, avoid the panic, right?
Yep.
But he goes, this current financial system, the fiat system, starts with the Dutch, then it goes to the Spanish, then it goes to the British, and now it comes to us. So we're on this is going on for 500 years now that we've had this model of financing, and it led to every major war we've had since it started. Every major war has been a result of the changing power dynamics, the Dutch to the British, the Spanish, and on it goes. So Ray Dalio, let's see, where is it here? No, this is David Sachs. David Sachs explains how we've had this government shutdown and we need to get rid of the filibuster. Trump's working with tariffs. We've got issues. You need to implement the plan. Otherwise, it's all emergency orders. So as they're attacking the emergency order that's using tariffs, that weakens the other emergency order that's kind of upholding some of these other executive orders that they're using. So David Sachs is making a case how we need to end the filibuster, right? Not only open the government, but in the filibuster to address this as well as many, many other issues. So I'm not a guy that just wants to get rid of the filibuster because it's protected us, but I'm more and more becoming convinced that the clock is running. So at a certain point, get rid of the filibuster, set the rules, put the filibuster back. You know, whatever you have to do to make it work.
One of the biggest problems we have right now is the government is shut down. Who does the public blame for that? Unfortunately, they're going to blame the party that's in
You
power.
guys are probably going to want to watch this here.
Yeah.
Give me just a second. All right, here we go. Back to the beginning.
All right. One of the biggest problems we have right now is the government is shut down. Who does the public blame for that? Unfortunately, they're going to blame the party that's in power, not realizing that the reason why the Democrats are able to shut down the government is because of the filibuster. So unfortunately, I think the public perceives that they gave power to Republicans, but the government is shut down. The reason for that is because Democrats can shut down the government with just 41 votes, basically. And President Trump has called for getting rid of the filibuster. If the Democrats won't reopen the government, I think we should do that. By the way, just to go off on this tangent for a second, most people don't understand the filibuster or how it works or why that's even a part of democracy. Basically, what it says is that for votes where the filibuster is in play, you need 60 votes. You need a supermajority in the Senate as opposed to 50. If you ask most people in the country what is democracy, they would say it's 50 plus one in the House, 50 plus one in the Senate, and the presidency. That's all you need. But that's not true. And the question is, if Democrats won't reopen the government, then I think Republicans are within their rights to get rid of this filibuster. And we know the Democrats will do it. The next time the Democrats have the trifecta, they will absolutely get rid of the filibuster.
We know that's true because when we interviewed Joe Manchin, he was very clear. He was asked by Schumer and Biden, let's vote out the filibuster. And he drew a bright line in the sand and said, no, but you're right, they would have. And we're getting to a place where if these folks in the Senate and the House don't get back to work soon, there will be no domestic policy agenda that gets passed. There's critical crypto legislation, AI legislation, there's domestic healthcare and other legislation that has to have a chance to see the light of day. And so if you're not going to show up, then it doesn't leave many other options except to get rid of the filibuster. Now, that has all these downstream effects for when you're not in charge, right? Just because then it'll be a simple majority for the other team as well.
Right.
But you're right, Sachs. Like, we're getting to a point where
there are two Democrats who are opposed to getting rid of the filibuster. It was Manchin and Sinema. They're now both gone. So the moderate Democrats are largely out of the caucus now. And if and when, because at some point the Democrats will at some point return to power, you know they're going to get rid of the filibuster. And here's the crazy thing. You can get rid of the filibuster with 50 votes in the Senate. I don't think people realize that. So basically, you've got this custom, because that's all it is a custom or convention or tradition in the Senate of having this filibuster vote. But the majority can just get rid of it. And the Democrats have already said they're going to. So why would the Republicans foolishly abide by this sort of gentleman's agreement that doesn't exist anymore, hold themselves to a 60-vote majority? The country gave President Trump a mandate. They gave him a sweeping re-election, 7 out of 7 swing
against
states,
all odds,
the House and the Senate. And they want results. And those results are being thwarted by a government shutdown and, more generally, by this crazy filibuster rule. Why wouldn't we get rid of it now and actually pass the reform that the country wants? And then let's be judged on that in the midterms and in 2028. And if it ends up not being good, then we'll pay the price.
It took me a little while to come around on the filibuster here. Right. Here's Carolyn Levitt explaining to Laura Trump pretty much the same thing.
100% right about this. And he wants Republicans to get tough and get smart. And we know that if Democrats, God forbid, are ever given the keys back to power in Washington, D.C., they will end the filibuster. 49 of them in their party already voted to do it. The only reason it got held up is because 2 voted against, and those 2 are no longer here. They got run out of town by radical leftists who have totally taken over the party. So the president is saying we have 3 years of me in the Oval Office to do everything the American people want us to do. Let's take advantage of this historic opportunity, get rid of the filibuster now before the Democrats can do it, and pack the Supreme Court, make Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C. states, and all of these other radical ideas that they want to implement. It's the right strategy, and it's based on reality. And the current opposition to the Republican Party is truly the most radical left party we've ever had.
So if they don't fix the filibuster, what's going to happen is you're going to continue to have a situation where judges can hold things up. Because again, judges have to enforce the law as written by the legislature. So you've got all these emergency orders, you've got all these policies and kind of these workaround loopholes, but it leaves the door wide open for judges to put injunctions because of the way the law is written and it's ambiguous and it hasn't been cleaned up, or there's this, or you've suspended enforcement of something in order to achieve a certain outcome that you want to achieve, right? You need to pass Trump's agenda into legislation to give the judges something to judge. Otherwise, as Bukele says, in a corrupt system, the judges will form a cartel to protect the system. And I'm pretty sure that's what we have happening here. Maybe we're going to hear it. If you don't, the judges will use what is in the law to form a cartel to obstruct the agenda.
Injunctions against him. Half of those were issued by Bush had 6 injunctions against him. Half of those were issued by Democrat-appointed judges. Obama had 12 nationwide injunctions issued against his administration. 60% of those were issued by Republican-appointed judges. In the first Trump term, he had 64 injunctions. That compares with Biden's 14. And then before the CASA decision, we have a rough count of about 40 issued in the first 6 months of the Trump administration. So over 100 injunctions issued by against the Trump administration. Over 90% of those were issued by Democrat-appointed judges. That means that since 1963, over 3/4 of the nationwide injunctions have been issued against President Trump, with over 90% of those coming from Democrat-appointed judges. Well, some might argue that's just because Trump is more lawless. Well, again, let's look at the facts.
He wins all his cases.
Emergency petitions were filed at the Supreme Court by the Trump administration this year. They won 22 of them. That's a 92% win rate at the United States Supreme Court. There's not a single other entity. Thank you. That.
So if you're getting overturned to the Supreme Court, but all these judges are granting injunctions and they're all politically coming from, 90% of them are coming from one party, and the other Republicans are coming from like the Reagan era Republican Party that have essentially all become dinos at this point, or rhinos.
Nobody can put these two freaking dots together. How do we connect these dots?
I don't know. It's crazy. And then on the other hand, you've got George Soros funding local prosecutors. I'll tell you what, if there's one thing that was emphasized to me this weekend, meeting with the sheriff of Pierce County and Christan Hall, is these prosecutors are about as important as your sheriff, right? They're the ones who decide who goes to jail and who doesn't.
Spent $600,000 to back a DA candidate from Yale Law School who's come in and basically stopped prosecuting crime.
He's doing this all over the country.
And in 2023, I think Memphis had the highest homicide rate per capita of any city in the United States of America. So deeply troubling. As I saw President Trump gaining momentum, I realized things are going to change in America, and things can actually change in my home state. And I started the conversation back in 2024 with the current mayor of Memphis. Paul Young is his name. He's somebody who cares deeply about his city. He's a Democrat. I'm a Republican. And my suggestion to Paul, which I think he took to heart, was that at its most fundamental level, public safety is something that all government servants owe their constituents. And I said, it doesn't matter whether there's an R behind your name or a D behind your name. It's up to us to deliver public safety. And if we can't, we should be fired. And we agreed to start working together. I started the conversation with Kash Patel in December of 2024, Pam Bondi in January. The first wave came in at the very beginning of the summer with federal marshals. About 140 arrests took place then.
We didn't hear too much about this in the media.
There's a reason you didn't hear about it, because we didn't want to draw a lot of attention to it. The next wave came with an FBI task force that had some additional DEA people. 500 more arrests, Joe. The worst of the worst. When President Trump saw that progress, he said, okay, we're going to provide Memphis the full menu. We've got, I think in total, 13 or 14 different federal agencies that are on the ground working on this to make certain that when we pick these people up, these criminals, that they're being charged federally. Because that's how we get around the Soros-appointed DA.
So in Pierce County, the sheriff did not like the feds coming down and doing this, but obviously they provide him with certain tools. I asked the sheriff specifically. I said, I was arrested by a Pierce County sheriff's deputy who was task force deputized to the Joint Terrorism Task Force with the FBI. And they traveled up to Kitsap County to arrest me. And I said that I asked him this question. I said, are you, because he was trying to say he wanted help from the feds to go against the state, right? Harmeet Dillon and Pam Bondi, he went and met with Pam Bondi and stuff. And I said, but are you able to stand against the feds? And I shared my example, and he looked at me and he goes, that happened under the previous sheriff and it would never happen under my watch. And then he moved on. And I apologize what happened. It's like, okay. awesome, taking bad guys off the streets. Unfortunately, I still have to ask, are they all bad guys? I assume they are. I assume that we've got a redirection. But the trust has been broken. One thing I do like about this clip, though, is you've got the Republican and the Democrat working together over the real issue, which is public safety. It's universal.
It should be like that in every city, everywhere.
Yeah. So I spent the weekend kind of scheming with some other local GOP members. I think we're getting ready to do a Take Kitsap Back campaign and reach across the aisle and actually make a slate of specific Kitsap County things that need to be addressed. And then we need to run an entire election in 2026. And we probably need to just do it. Just do a little MAGA, kind of take over the Republican Party. I think we just need to do it, right? So if anybody's interested, is in this local area, talk to me. I need your help. All right, this is Bukele, and he was asked through the 4chan boards, or someone asked, and, you know, whatever, how did he do it? How did Bukele take El Salvador from the crime capital of the world to one of the safest countries in the world? A half decade. Oh, always buffering right when I think we're gonna just launch right into his, you know, his sentence.
I
is
love
gonna
that
finish mine.
Asimov guy.
What the fuck? How did he do it? Put the criminals in jail. Keep them there. Groundbreaking and revolutionary. Arresting criminals make your country safer. Wow. How did it happen? Nobody can explain why crime's gone down so much. It's a mystery. Great idea.
Now, I'm not intimately familiar with what they did down in El Salvador other than arrest MS-13 and bust up the judicial cartel. But I do know they had to do something to make it happen. The way the system was set up is the cartels and the gangsters and the government apparatchiks that were participating had basically rigged the rules to where you couldn't like get rid of, you know, you could get rid of a legislature, but not the judge. You might get rid of a judge, but then you won't get rid of the executive. You know, they played the checks and balances against each other and controlled enough of the checks and balances that should they lose control of one of them, the other ones would put them in its place, right? Trump's a rogue. Impeachment, judges stop them. Oh, the judicial's rogue, laws and what, you know what I mean? Like it's a game. So they had to do what was called the Great Exception, which was the exception. They had to do the exception to the Constitution, an emergency order to say, Bukele, do what you got to do. You got 5 years or whatever it was, right? Go. Now, after the exception was over, he did extend his ability to now run for life. So, you know, at least he's a good dictator.
So tyrant.
Yeah. Now, if Donald Trump can get this filibuster ended, he could probably start going after some of the judges because he needs the Senate to do that. He can probably get his agenda passed into law, which then forces the courts to have to look at the law and apply the law rather than, you know, being so easy to give injunctions. So Donald Trump makes the case. This is what I will do if we end the filibuster.
Here's some of the things that would pass if we terminated the filibuster. Voter ID, no mail-in voting, no cash bail, no men and women's sports, no welfare for illegals. You could go on and on. This is 2 pages of things we'd do if you did that. Without it, I don't know that you pass anything because you can't deal with them. They're really irrational. They really are. But I was happy to see that a tremendous liability to this country, a woman that made herself rich in this country, Nancy Pelosi, has quit, and she'll be out of here pretty soon. And that I consider that to be a great asset for America. Here's some of the things that we'd pass if we terminated.
That's a pretty good list of stuff, and it sounds pretty needed. You know, we just made it through this election cycle, and it was a little bit rough. So we need to jump over to private, and then I've got some hilarious stuff we're going to play. So jump over to private. We're going to be hearing a little bit from Mike Pence, and we're also going to hear about where all this madness started. I mean, legitimately, when did this start? Where did this come from? And then we're going to hear the national anthem as played by J6ers. Actually, we're going to end with that. We're going to play through the national anthem. This is the J6 choir. I participated in this choir. They've remastered it and turned it into a music video. So this is our outro today. After the outro, we'll be going private. For the unoffendables that want to stick with us, you're going to like what we have in private. All right. We'll see you guys.
We sing for the people who never made it home.
Oh, you guys want to see it?
Be nice. You got too many screens.
And unfortunately, there's background music.
We could turn it off.
United in this fight forever.
It's coming through blurry. Anyways, they're singing a different song. I thought it was a national anthem. It's a new song that they recorded recently. All right, we're jumping over to private. We'll talk to you guys in a little bit.